really matters? That might be the most important question you can ask. So let's talk about it. Welcome to What Really Matters podcast, Everyday Spirituality with Karen Wyatt. And I'm glad you're joining me here for another episode today, because as I record this, I have just celebrated my birthday just yesterday, and I've turned, I hate to admit it, but I've turned 69 years old on this birthday. I've decided to do an episode on aging because yesterday I found myself feeling sad about getting older, and because I have only 1 year left before the next milestone decade of 70, and having a lot of negative thoughts about getting older. So I've been doing some research, which is always what I do, looking for information, looking for, how can I change my mindset here and think differently about getting older. So I looked through some articles and books and stories that I could find, and I decided it's actually really important. I discovered that I do change my mindset because people who have negative views toward aging actually have lower life satisfaction. This was found in a study. Less well-being. They have poorer social supports, and they're more likely to be hospitalized or to die young. And on the converse side, those who have a positive attitude toward aging are less affected by the stresses of daily life and seem to be generally more healthy overall and have more well-being. Though maybe it works in the converse, if you have better well-being and you feel well, you have a more positive attitude toward aging. Except I'm a person with a lot of well-being and I do feel well, but I can slip into some of those concerns about getting older and have some negative thoughts and images in my head. Though what I also discovered is that's so very common in our society. And one thing I learned, I read an interview with Louise Aronson, who has written a book titled Elderhood, and she talks about even the way we talk about old age and old people is a pejorative term that is used in a negative way, and that often in our society, people of old age are viewed as a problem to be managed or to be handled in our society. And so no wonder many of us have taken on this negative feeling and negative thoughts about getting older. So she proposes that we use the term elderhood and we think of 3 phases of life: childhood, adulthood, elderhood. And that elderhood begins somewhere between age 60 and 70. That's when we begin the elderhood phase of life. And I actually really like that. I think changing the terminology we use could be really helpful. And so elderhood itself is not necessarily a negative time. And she was saying, think about the developmental stage of adolescence. Young people going through adolescence have lots and lots of problems and need lots and lots of help from their parents and teachers and support from our society, but we don't reject them. We don't try to exclude them from society or push them aside. And so as we embrace the earlier stages in life with care and compassion and support, we should also be embracing elderhood and those of us who are entering into elderhood. So that made me feel very optimistic, actually. I really like that term, elderhood. And I can think of myself in that term as someone entering into this stage. And then as I continued to read, other studies have shown that people in elderhood experience greater happiness, and that actually life happiness peaks at the age of 80 worldwide, according to studies that have been done. So, that I still have a lot of good years to keep building up my happiness before that peaks. Also, that people in their elderhood are better at decision making and problem solving. And a lot of that comes from life experience and wisdom gained throughout life. And that's something to feel really positive about. And the author of that study was saying, if I needed to have a complex surgery done, I would choose a 70-year-old surgeon over a 30-year-old surgeon, because the life experience is so very valuable for a task and a skill such as surgery. So that was very interesting as well. And another study showed two traits that predict successful aging, or I should say, successfully entering into elderhood, are number one, conscientiousness. I wouldn't have thought of that, but conscientiousness is associated with doing well as we enter into elderhood, and meaning by conscientiousness, dependability, reliability, doing what you say you'll do, and being proactive. So anticipating when a problem may show up and doing what you can about it in advance. Cool. I like that a lot. And that would include even things, I think, like advanced care planning and being willing to look at what the future may hold and to work on it. So the second trait that predicts successful entry into elderhood is openness to experience. So being willing to try new things, new ideas, new ways of doing things, and being curious in life. And I love that. And when I look at myself, I think I have conscientiousness about how I do things, definitely openness. I'm definitely extraordinarily curious about life and everything it has to offer. So those two traits for me bode fairly well and helps me feel more positive about this, my foray into elderhood as I enter that stage of life. Some of the other things that appear to be helpful as we enter elderhood, one is connectedness. And there are all kinds of studies showing that social connection is so important as we grow older. And some that say particularly our connections with young people, they help keep us younger in our thoughts and our mindset. And so I really liked hearing that. I'm not a person, I tend to be an introvert and kind of a loner in many ways. So I don't have lots and lots of social connections in my life, except I have tons of connections with people I've interviewed for my podcast and people all around that I've gotten to know. So I have those more superficial virtual connections with people, but in terms of day-to-day connections, it's primarily family members that I'm close to and connected to. So some of the other things that have been shown that are really helpful as we're growing older, in terms of physical exercise, one neuroscientist said that hiking is actually the best type of exercise we could do because it keeps our brains younger, because we need to use our brains for navigation and to negotiate trails. If we're hiking on dirt trails that have rocks and branches and obstacles and trees, and we use our brains more, versus mindless exercise where we, maybe pedaling on a stationary cycle where we're not really having to use our brains and keep our brains flexible. So I really liked hearing about that, and that inspires me to want to do more hiking now and to really make a commitment to that in terms of as a wonderful type of exercise. We know of the importance of maintaining movement and, physical strength and flexibility. But the idea that hiking in particular is good is something that was new to me. So I want to emphasize that. All the studies that I've been reading show there's no magic diet. that helps us age better. So there is no one way of eating. And the author of that study emphasized eat a variety of foods, probably eat more plants than you eat now, because most of us need to incorporate more plant type foods into our diet, and to do everything in moderation. So don't try to eliminate any particular food groups, including desserts and sweets, but do everything in moderation. I love that as well. That makes me really happy because I'm at an age where I don't want to put the effort in to be on any type of stressful diet. I like this idea, everything in moderation. Then another article and study said that how we interpret pain makes a difference to how we approach our elder years. If we have a particularly negative outlook on pain, our suffering and our unhappiness will be greater. So this author talked about what stories do we tell ourselves about pain. And in particular, he's referring to kind of the aches and pains that happen to us as the body ages. And if we're able to navigate those daily, ordinary types of pain without getting too negative or feeling down about it, we will be able to maintain our happiness better and our satisfaction with life better than if we get caught up in feeling sorry for ourselves and feeling like victims from the physical pain that we experience. So that's an interesting concept as well. And how do we talk to ourselves about the pain that we have? And how do we manage that on a day-to-day basis? Again, something else for me to think about. Other studies emphasize the importance of gratitude, and that's been shown throughout life at any age. We know that gratitude increases our sense of well-being and our connectedness with other people and just overall our satisfaction with life. And the importance here is to be happy with what you have. Whatever it is that you have in your life, to find a way to be content and be happy about life just as it is right now, and not constantly looking for ways that, gosh, things could be better or would have been better if only this, but to simply find a way to be in a state of gratitude right where you are right now in this moment. So another aspect of having a positive elderhood also is having a satisfying sex life. And one study showed that as people age, if they're in a close relationship, they tend to be more satisfied than ever with the sex life they have, and that life experience is helpful there in terms of greater intimacy in relationships, and also an emphasis on quality over quantity. And so our attitudes about sex in our relationships change, and our needs and our wants from our sexual relationship change, but we tend to be more satisfied with what we have if we are in a relationship that works for us. So I like that as well. All of these are all really great things. First, great things to focus on to make sure I'm emphasizing as I'm looking at my positive steps into elderhood. And just things to remember, like, oh, it's not so bad to be getting older, and to remind myself, like, honestly, would I want to go back to being 20 years old? No, I would not. I honestly would not. And so these are all factors that I'm looking at and that are helping me change my attitude about my new age that I'm living in right now. And then another study showed that longevity is actually increased from these four things, these four key factors in life. And the first is optimism. So I think that goes along as well with some of the other things, with maybe having a sense of gratitude with how we view life itself and the things that have happened to us in life. And if we can stay in a more hopeful and optimistic state of mind, we're going to have more satisfaction and more happiness at the end of life. And then that in turn leads to greater longevity. So it all fits together. It all flows together, that emotionally and spiritually, when we're in a positive place, that has a good effect on our bodies physically. So we keep working on our physical health, trying to maintain our physical health, like with a reasonable, moderate diet and some exercise and hiking and staying connected with others. And our physical health feeds into our emotional health, which feeds into our spiritual health. And back again, our spiritual health keeps our physical body healthier as well. And so this study on longevity said the second key is happiness. And so again, that's what we've been talking about, that people tend to be happier as they get older. We have more capacity for happiness, and probably because in many ways we've settled a lot of the issues and the questions of earlier life, and we're moving into this new phase of comfort. But it's essential to work on being happy and staying happy. The third factor is social support. So it comes up again, our connectedness and how well we have other people in our lives that we give and receive from and feel close to. And so we do know from studies that social isolation and loneliness are extremely bad for physical and emotional health. So it's really something to work on for ourselves, and to make sure that we put our energy into is staying socially connected with other people. And the fourth key factor in increasing longevity is having a purpose in life. And in fact, this study said that purpose is the most protective of all of the above keys, having some sort of purpose for being here in life. And I think that's an interesting factor, because sometimes we think purpose has to do with our job or our career, what type of work we do every day. That's traditionally how we view purpose in life. And I've talked about this before in other episodes, but life has purpose at many different levels. And I like to think of the fact that it's really how we grow spiritually and how we move toward being our best selves on this planet. That's our true purpose, our deeper purpose, regardless of what type of job we have or how long we work or what we accomplish. Our true inner purpose is simply to become our true selves and to grow spiritually and in consciousness as much as we can. So it doesn't mean in order to have purpose in elderhood, I have to go get another job, or I have to find something to do with my time. Really, it's about tending to ourselves, tending to our emotions, tending to how we care for ourselves, how we love ourselves and have self-compassion, and how we view ourselves, how we spend time healing our old wounds and practicing forgiveness and finding love in the world, and perhaps about being generous with others, giving of our time and our energy to others. For some, maybe it is an actual physical type of work, maybe doing volunteer work or showing up for an organization to be helpful to others. That may be where we find purpose in life, but it's very broadly defined in my mind. For each one of us, we can discover purpose in anything that we're doing, whatever it might be. If it brings us joy, if it helps us love life more and helps us just radiate light more into the world, that's an incredible purpose to have here on this planet. And if it helps us grow, if it helps us look inside and go more deeply and heal whatever is hurting or wounded within ourselves, that is an amazing purpose as well for life. So I find that this is one of the areas that leaps up for me in a way, I guess, because I've always tried to live a life of purpose, and even doing podcasts now and writing books, that's part of my purpose, but that's the external part of it. That is what I show to the world. And I really truly believe that the most important thing I do is this inner work, the internal things I work on for myself and my efforts to heal. So even here talking about how do I approach elderhood, how do I look at myself, and how do I correct those negative messages and thought patterns in my own head toward aging? How do I turn them more positive? And how do I begin to love the fact that I'm stepping into elderhood? How do I feel wonderful and amazing about that? And that's what I'm working on right now as this birthday milestone has happened for me. And I feel good about it. I feel good about already the insights and the realizations that have come to me through doing this reading that I've done over this day. And then also yesterday on my birthday, I went for a walk on the beach, which is one of my favorite things to do. It was at low tide, so I walked barefoot out on the flat, wet sand where the waves have receded, and I just love it. I love walking there on that flat expanse and seeing whatever the tide has brought in and washed ashore for the day, and just feeling the sand, the firm sand underneath my feet, and occasionally a wave that comes up and laps at my toes. So I took my favorite walk yesterday at low tide, and it was perfect. Finally, it happened in the middle of the afternoon instead of in the middle of the night. So I was able to go out in the sunshine and walk on the beach. And one of the things I came upon, as I said, one of the gifts like washed up by the previous high tide were flowers and flower petals. And I think I may have mentioned this in a previous episode several months ago. That happened as well. I was walking on the beach and all these pink rose petals washed up and all in one place. And I knew for sure they were from someone's ritual they had done somewhere, tossing rose petals into the sea. Here they washed up on the beach, so I gathered them and I made a mandala on the beach at low tide again. I kind of had my own little ceremony and ritual sort of honoring those petals, knowing they would get washed away again with the next high tide and go back into the water. And who knows where they would wash up again the next time, but maybe they would carry a message. So yesterday as I was walking, there were dozens of flowers and flower petals on the beach, and they were arranged in this undulating, scalloped pattern of the waves as the higher tide exhausted itself on the sand and left those petals wherever the tide reached. So there was this beautiful garland, in a sense, of flowers and flower petals, and there were carnations, there were yellow rose petals, there were white daisies, there were irises and orchids and birds of paradise. And it was amazing. They were scattered on the beach, but in this, as I said, undulating, scalloped pattern as this beautiful garland that was just lying there on the beach. And again, I recognized, as I had before, that those flowers had been part of some sort of ritual somewhere. They'd been tossed into the ocean, perhaps from a boat out at sea, perhaps on some other shore somewhere else. But they'd been placed in the water for a ritual purpose, and maybe for a memorial, maybe a celebration, maybe celebrating an engagement or a wedding out at sea. But I suspect in my heart, more likely, a memorial or a farewell or a burial at sea. But yesterday on my birthday, as I walked there, those flowers were there. They'd been placed there by the tide, and I received them as if they'd been placed there for me, flowers given to me on my birthday. And I loved them and I enjoyed them, and I received them willingly and with gratitude, though not literally. I decided this time they were stretched for maybe half a mile across the beach, and I decided I would not pick any of them up. I would leave them because they were arranged in such a beautiful pattern. And I thought, I'm receiving and embracing this as a gift to me, and maybe someone else is going to come along after me who will receive them as well. And then when the tide rises again, as with the mandala I made before, they'll be carried back out to sea again. And I want that to happen. I want them to be there for the tide to swallow up once again and move along to the next place for the next person who needs to receive it. So as I proceeded on my birthday walk, I realized that I felt deep gratitude for all of the earth, really, in that moment. This gift of this garland of flowers reminded me how lucky I am to be here on such an incredibly beautiful planet. The waters, the trees, the mountains, it's stunning. And I feel so grateful that I've been able to live these 69 years here on this planet and enjoy all the beauty of it. And I felt a certain comfort and a confidence, in a sense, in receiving that gift of flowers, in knowing that, things show up for us in life when we need them, and when there's a message that we can receive, or when there's a blessing for us, and that I can trust that. I've always trusted in that, and I can continue to trust that as I move into elderhood, that there will always be beauty and love and joy for me if I'm simply open to receiving it. And when I put myself in those situations where I can find it, it can come to me, and I'm able to see it and to recognize it when it's there and not just walk past it or ignore it. And so at the end of that walk, after receiving my beautiful garland of flowers, I was in a different place. I had already shifted my mindset, and I was truly able then to celebrate this process of having a birthday, of celebrating going around the sun one more time, and feeling grateful for every year and every moment I've been able to live here on earth, and am grateful and optimistic for every day and every breath that is yet to come. So thanks for listening to my little birthday message about moving into elderhood. And because I already know from the statistics I've seen that most people who listen to this podcast are also approaching elderhood, if not there already, I hope that these words are helpful to you as well. And thanks for joining me again and listening here. And I'll remind you, if you'd like to make a small financial contribution to help keep this podcast and End of Life University on the air, you can go to eoluniversity.com/support, and you'll find 3 different ways that you can help support this podcast. And I really appreciate it, everyone who's made contributions already. So thank you once again for joining me here, and I'll be back next week with something new to share with you. Until then, remember that we're here for love. That's the most important thing we can pursue. That's our most important purpose, just learning how to love more deeply. So face your fear, be ready for whatever life and elderhood bring next, and love each and every moment of your very precious existence. Bye-bye.